Well, good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope blog and podcast. And I'm here today with Vanessa DeSilvio. Um, Many of you may recognize her face. She is the Samaritan woman in The Chosen. Um, and it was, it became or has become one of the more poignant episodes, I think, because of Christ's interaction with the Samaritan woman and the emotion there. Um, and how the Bible comes to life, especially for honestly um just for people as we kind of think about what it would be like to meet Jesus with our shame, with the things that we've done and the sin, and how Christ meets us with compassion. Um but Vanessa, before we dive into The Chosen, because I know you talk about that a ton, which is not a bad thing, it's good. But I'm super curious, myself. I've been married about a year and a half, thinking about having kids soon, hopefully. What's it like balancing your loves, your passions of acting and creation along with children? Because you love your children and you want to be a mom, you want to be present for them. But how are you blending both of them? Are you finding it hard? Do you find that one is sacrificed over another? How are you balancing that?
It is a work in progress. It is certainly hard. It is very difficult, I think, to find that balance. It helps immensely that I have support from my husband.
Mm.
He met me, and he knew when we met long ago. We've known each other for over 20 years now. I was an actor then, and I'm still an actor now. And he knew that that is something that I wanted to continue doing even once we started raising a family. So luckily, he has been very supportive of what I do, but it's difficult, especially so I have three boys. For some reason, two was much easier than three. It's just, just as we were starting to enter a place where we were able to, the kids were more mobile and I didn't have to worry about nap schedules. Then we got granted us another beautiful boy. But it was a total surprise during COVID. And I was like, okay, now we're having a third. And so I'm back into, the routines of nap schedules, and he's a toddler now about to turn 3. So it's it is challenging because there is a guilt there, which I don't know. I think it's just a mom guilt that when we
Mm.
as mothers, we want to be present for our children. And so I'm mainly a stay-at-home mom, but I step out for gigs when I have little gigs that I call them little because a lot of times they're just day player roles on TV, episodic stuff, or it's, a quick voiceover, job that I'll record from home or I'll go into a studio to do, or industrial training videos. I live in Dallas and there's a lot of like corporate training videos and commercial gigs. And those are typically a day or two max, on set. But there is a guilt because it's me doing what a lot of people think is a hobby. And it's like, no, this is actually my profession. So
Hmm.
um, I think it's because I enjoy it so much. It's less work than, what most people do for their 9 to 5 jobs. And so because of that, there's sometimes a guilt involved with doing things that are kind of silly if it's just a silly role on a commercial spot, but all the work that goes into childcare and school pickup and school drop off, and there's so much prep involved. I went down to Austin recently to shoot on Walker TV series, and my character literally had one line. It was one line, and so I'm facing that challenge right now as an actor because I'll go do all this work and all this prep. And my husband even said it for one line, like there comes a point where you have to start to go, okay, especially now that I've been a part of The Chosen. Okay, so when does there come a point where I have to go, okay, I really do want meteor roles that are going to really be fulfilling for me as an artist. We'll have to start somewhere, but I feel like I've been doing this long enough that now I'm starting to experience that. So there's guilt
Hmm.
involved there. All this work that went into for one line on a TV show, which it was
Yeah.
wonderful. It's a great experience. I got to meet great actors, and you're opening doors for more opportunities to work with directors and producers. But it is a constant, struggle. And there are times where I think to myself, that was a lot of work for something so small. And yet, I keep coming back because it is, I also feel that I would be very I wouldn't feel full in my life if I only stuck to mom, being a mom is raising my children and doing that love. But I feel like when I pour into the cup of artistry and creativity, I'm able to offer more to my children and
Yeah.
vice versa, so if I'm able to be at home more and enjoy my children more, it makes me a better actor. It makes me more eager to take on roles when those opportunities arise. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about media roles. Is there a particular role that, you would love to have someday? Maybe it can't be now based on the current situation with your family, but is there a role that you really hope someday you can do that would be kind of like, oh, this is like the pinnacle of the acting experience that I want to have?
Yes. Yeah, it would be a series regular on a TV episodic. That'd be amazing. Just an opportunity to just be a part of something that has, years of opportunity. So that would be amazing. Ideally something here in Dallas that is shooting here in Dallas so that I don't have to travel far and I can still be a mom, but also step out, a couple times a week or every other week. It doesn't have to be a huge part, but I would love to be a series regular on an episodic show. So the hope is that those opportunities will start to present themselves more. Texas, there was a recent, what was it? It was like I'm trying to forget the word. It was like a big, it was a big congressional thing that was going on here in the state of Texas where they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to raise funds for Texas films and TV, any sort of Texas film projects. And so now it passed. And as a result, now there's the hope is that it's a big grant and that there's going to be a lot more work coming to Dallas. And one of the things that it required is that if these incentives. It was incentives that they were going to offer for productions and film crews to come and shoot in Dallas. One of the things that they would have is they would have to cast, I think, like 60 or 70% of their actors. Don't quote me on that, but a certain percentage of actors have to be from Texas, so local actors. And so the hope is that that is a film incentive that really will allow for more work here in Texas and allow for more opportunities for actors like myself who live here and would rather stay here and not don't really have much of a desire to head out to LA or New York quite yet because of our families.
It's
So
interesting you say that because most of the actors and the actresses, musicians, content creators that I've talked to all live in Los Angeles, New York, um, and, London, kind of like the hot spots for wherever they are. And I had no idea because I didn't even think it's c- it's cool that the acting industry in some ways may be moving to Texas because I didn't even know there was a hub in Texas for that.
there used to be, it slowed down for sure. There used to be in like the 90s. This was a huge hub for a lot of TV episodic work.
Hmm.
Friday Night Lights shot in Austin and Dallas, and um, some other. There's been a lot. Wishbone was like a big TV series, a children's TV show that shot out here. Barney and Friends shot out here, and so at one point there was a lot of work going on here, and then it did fizzle right around the time that I graduated from SMU and went to Southern Methodist University. And when I graduated and signed with my agent, a lot of the work started fizzling. There were a lot of projects that started but didn't get past one season and then fizzled and moved on. And
Hmm.
so we're waiting for more work to come out here. But oh yeah, there's definitely hubs. In the south, we're considered like the Southwest, really sort of southern. We're more southern central, but Southwest and New Mexico. There's work. There was Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul was out there, and then in Atlanta, that's another big hub. So I know of a lot of actor friends who choose to move to Atlanta as opposed to New York or LA for a lot of film opportunities and TV opportunities that shoot there. So we're hoping that in the upcoming years there will be more work brought here to Texas so that we can, yeah, have an
Hmm.
opportunity to do the work here. Yeah.
Now, have you ever found that your faith collides with a role or um an opportunity? Like, have you ever passed down an opportunity or have you taken an opportunity and then it didn't seem to quite be what you expected? Have you ever confronted that in the acting industry?
For sure. That is something that has come up recently ever since my experience with The Chosen because, I don't often do faith-based work. That is, the reality is I very rarely do faith-based projects. And The Chosen was definitely one of those opportunities where I was eager to connect my faith with, with my love for performance. And now that there's such a following with The Chosen, and there's so many fans that reach out to me and are, eager to see what I'm doing next, I have faced moments where I'm like, I don't know if I want to post about this project because it's not faith based, and I'm afraid
Huh.
that fans are going to want to come see me in this play. They both instances were plays, so I love to do plays as well, and I try to do a play a year. And so I did a show out in Fort Worth a couple months ago and about a year and a half ago with that same theater. And both roles were definitely, just these characters who, I mean, were just make questionable choices, questionable, strong adult language, strong adult situations. There was some intimacy with one role that required me to be more intimate than I ever have been on stage, more than just kissing. It was like physical intimacy that I was written into the script. And so I knew about that. However, I took on the role prior to COVID. And I remember accepting the role and thinking, okay, this is going to be quite challenging. This is going to be, it's going to stretch me and challenge me. And I like to take on roles that scare me. That's one thing I tell my husband. Like, if it scares me, it's a role I need to do, because
Hmm. Okay.
I'm at a point now as an actor where if it's easy, it's not so much. It's not so much fun. I'm ready to take on roles that really do challenge me as an actor, and challenge me in the sense of, my role is to tell their story in a way that seems really human, and I'm not judging this character, but really telling their story and allowing other people in response, allowing them to experience this character in a way that otherwise I feel like they might disregard this person or this character because of their history or their choices in life. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I played she was basically like a con artist, a prostitute, and the role was church lady. And so I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to think that I'm playing a church lady, and the exact opposite. But it was a lovely playwright who I admire, Stephen Adley Girgis. I love his work. He really pushes the envelope. He really presents characters who are, actors of color, who are roles that are filled by actors of color. So lots of Latino, lots of Black actors, lots of minority actors, and I just love those sorts of roles that he offers. And so I took on this role, and then COVID hit, and they delayed the project. They basically just kept postponing it. I was pregnant, and so they postponed it for another season, which I couldn't believe they were doing that for me. I thought they would just, recast the role. And so finally it came time to start rehearsing, and I started getting cold feet. And I think it was because I was a mom to three at that point, and I just felt like in those 2 years that had passed, I had changed. I felt like I was not the same actor, and especially because of my experience with The Chosen, it's like, oh man, this role is quite flawed and quite
Yeah.
different than any other role I'd played. But I will tell you this, I prayed about it on the way to rehearsal one day, and I asked God to, just help. I asked him quite simply, like, is this role right for me? And, can you help me? Can you see the beauty in this role? Can you help me see what it is about this role that I need to share with others? Um, and I kid you not, that same rehearsal,
Yeah.
we rehearsed the final scene in the play. And in this scene, this character experiences the grace of another character in the show, who he offers grace and love to her in a way that she probably had never experienced before.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
she's left on stage thinking, in my mind, playing the role, she's left on stage thinking, what do I do with this? I have an opportunity now to spread good or continue living my ways of sin, and not living in a place of love, but living in a place of hate and a place of just wanting to con others out of their
Yeah.
good. And it was so apparent to me in that rehearsal that day. And I remember driving back home and just praying, thank you, Lord. Like, this role really, there is something redeeming about this character. And it wasn't a faith-based show. And I'm not sure if audiences may even be aware of it when they see it. But my perspective playing the role, I saw a come to Jesus moment for her at the end of this play that was so
Hmm.
personal. And it made me feel like, yes, this is a story I need to tell. It's about bad people who, bad people or like really sinful people, people who live lives in situations that maybe they were born into and they can't escape. And it's about the goodness of others and how we can change and transform other people's lives. So that was really what came to the forefront for me, and it made that role so important.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed every second of it, of playing that part.
Was there, because it's interesting you mention it. It almost sounds to me like a Samaritan woman type character, which, in The Chosen you have. It's, in the Bible, it's because we've heard it a lot. It's a little less shocking, but in the Bible and in those times and for Jesus, that was a very shocking interaction, especially with a woman who is, sexually promiscuous and a Samaritan, and also just a man talking to a woman alone, at the well. Um, but I was gonna say, you were mentioning in those 2 years since COVID kind of changing in your acting and what you were thinking about since The Chosen, is there a boundary line for you that you don't cross? Or for you, is this character, when you're thinking about it, are you thinking, is this character able to exhibit some form of redemption that I think is worth telling? How do you kind of have the boundary line there?
Yeah, so man, I definitely have hard nose, and that has always been a thing. I'm not about nudity on stage or on TV or film, so that's a hard no for me. But yes, if there are, uh, perhaps, lots of intimate moments or sexually intimate, moments or blood or gore or any, I've had roles like that. Or yeah, or these characters who I often play, these very troubled, flawed women. I don't know what it is about me, but in my training as an actor,
Yeah,
I always played. And then as I went out into the real world, like, yes, these troubled women who just have really hard pasts and are living hard lives. And so oftentimes for me, it's finding, the vulnerability behind all of that. Maybe they're hard on the surface, but there's a vulnerability behind it that I try to work on showing so that these characters, again, are three-dimensional and not just people you disregard, but there's something behind all of that. Or
yeah,
it's the opposite. If they're very vulnerable on the outside surface, there's a strength, an inner strength that, I love to play with underneath, that I feel, again, shows duality, shows not just, one-dimensional characters, but people who we are drawn towards because there is an inner strength, or there is an inner vulnerability that we don't quite see on the surface. And
yeah,
I love to play with those characters. And that was Photina for sure. The woman at the well was that, this sort of hardness on the outside and this vulnerability that finally comes through at the end, especially when she realizes that she's face to face with her Messiah. And then the joy, that was just so much fun. But yeah, so for me, it's about, if there are opportunities like that where I'm playing characters who, scare me just because of, the role and what it requires of me, it
yeah,
again comes down to, well, what is the overall message? Like, what is this character a chess piece, in this game? Is this character a piece of this puzzle? And what is the overall message? Am I on board with that?
yeah,
What is the point of the story? And so those are things that I have to investigate, and I'm learning, pray about. That's one thing that I didn't do before, but I pray about these roles often and say, okay, God, is this a role that I need to take on? What am I doing with this role? What can this do for others who
yeah.
witness it?
Is there a role that you've really connected with personally? Because you were saying that you play a lot of women with troubled pasts and hard circumstances. Is there, like, for you, like, have you had a really hard past? Or like, is there that resonating factor that for you, like, to play these women is almost playing parts of yourself in different times in your life? Or,
Such a great question. I can honestly say I'm blessed to have had a wonderful childhood, loving parents, supportive parents. No, I wouldn't say that I've had a troubled past or anything. We have had instances where just things have come up in the family, hard instances with, just life situations that life can throw curveballs at you for sure. But I don't feel like I was ever in like a traumatic or, traumatizing experience in my childhood, or as a woman dating. I've been blessed to be surrounded by people who really are loving and supportive.
hmm,
But I think that's why I enjoy acting, because I think my life can be a little bit boring. And so these roles are way more interesting and way more fun. My mom and dad say that from a very young age, I was like 3 or 4, I would pretend like I was in a soap opera and I would just act and on my own with my dolls and I would start crying and they would, come in and be like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And I would just be like, "No, no, no, I'm just playing. I'm just playing." And go right back to crying. So they were like, okay, either my child is very troubled
Oh,
or
wow.
we need to put her in acting school. Luckily they did discover that, okay, this girl needs to act. And so I started acting at the age of 6. But so I just love drama. I don't love drama in my life. I love drama on stage. And I love, just getting to hide behind these masks and play these characters. I think I'm driven towards humanity, just the human condition. I am fascinated, and this sometimes I've recently had to stop this, but I was always just fascinated when I would read stories in the news of moms who, did horrifying things you've heard of moms who, suffered from postpartum depression and end up
Yeah.
killing their children or killing, their spouse and then themselves or. And I'm always there's something about when I read these stories, I want to then find out more about this woman and go to her
Mm,
Facebook page and find like what kind of a life did she lead, and just seeing these average, people that you would just walk right by in the street and never think that they would ever be capable of doing these horrifying things. But I don't
yeah.
know what it is. I'm drawn to just the humanity behind this act. What could lead a person to do this? And I think that's the actor in me who's like, if I had to play this type of a role, how would I bring humanity to this? Like, what was behind all of this, and what could possibly have been going through this person's mind? And um, so I'm just fascinated by all of that. I think that's just something that I enjoy. And so those are the types that I tend to love to play. So I did play, I remember in my graduate school times, I played Yerma, which is it's a play called Yerma by Garcia Lorca, Federico Garcia Lorca. And it was a play that was sort of an adaptation that we did. And I played Yerma, and she's a woman who cannot get pregnant. She just can't.
Mm.
And how it drives her crazy. Like it literally just drives her insane to the point where she ends up killing her husband at the end of the play. I mean, it was
Oh, wow.
horrifying, but it was one of these
Yeah.
roles that I was just so drawn to because of I wanted to know more about, what would drive a woman to do this and tell their story in a way that where you see it all came from a place of love and desperation. And so I, at the time, had not had children yet. And so I put myself in the situation of what would that be like to want so desperately to have a child, that it would
Mm,
drive you to do horrifying things. But
yeah.
yeah, so it's just, I guess it's the imagination in me that I think I was just born with as a small child, wanting to just imaginatively play in these dramatic scenarios and situations in order to tell their stories in a way that just seems honest and real.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you find that, um, you were talking about why these bad things happen, like what drives people to do these things? Um, because it's interesting because in The Chosen, in the character that you play and in the series itself, this emphasis is on that man's fallen and sinful, imperfect. And so the sin in people is the background for all these bad things that happen. Um, is that something that you personally believe as well? Or have you found that through your acting, through your life experiences, you're not really sure you see it that way? Do you see it more as like the circumstances people are in? Because I know you mentioned that earlier. Sometimes that can contribute. Um, where do you think that drive, where people can do these desperate things that you wouldn't even think possible, where do you think that comes from?
I think it's just, I don't think we're born with any of that. I do think it comes down to the circumstances we're in. Um, I think
Hmm.
we're inherently good. I think God made us inherently good. Um, and, but I will say that, yeah, oftentimes these characters, or these people who do these horrible things, I just feel like it's a combination of the situations that and the circumstances they're surrounding themselves with, and then the lack of support, Um, either they don't have a connection with God or with a church, or sometimes they do, and that's what's also is just so bewildering and just surprising is when you meet people who are do horrible things, you know. But I
Yeah.
feel like oftentimes it comes down to just not having a sense of support, a support system, and people who are checking in on you. Um, I do believe very much in mental health, and I think that's something that we still find so taboo in the U.S. nowadays. I feel like it's becoming better. I do know more and more friends who have gone to see a therapist. I've gone to see a therapist. You know, I it's there are times in my life as a mom where I just felt so challenged, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to go see someone who I can talk to, who just
Yeah.
unload on, someone who isn't my husband or my mom. No one who's going to judge me for the things I'm going to say or to share. So I think mental health has a lot to do with it as well. That when we don't feel mentally healthy, there
Mm.
still is this stigma and this fear of sharing that with others, because for some reason we still see our brains and our mental health as something that you can control. And if you're not praying hard enough, you don't have a good enough relationship with God, you're not. Yeah, I just don't believe that. And I love that churches are now starting to welcome in behaviorists and psychologists and people who can talk about, or people who have battled mental illness. That
Yeah.
happened at my church recently, who have been talked about what is that, what is, how important it is to get help.
Yeah.
But it's not just help or Jesus, it's both. It's having help in your life and also building that connection with God and with Christ. And um it's not one or the other, it really is both. And then also I think just having a support system of people who check on you, who are aware of what might be going on, and who are there to offer support in any way they can.
Yeah. Well, for the scene when you're in The Chosen, when you're acting out this role and you're interacting with Jesus, um, like for you personally, how did you see Jesus personally? Like kind of taking out, so you're seeing through the character. Obviously, you've got to see him one way, but then you're also yourself. And so you're interacting with someone that you believe in and from what I'm hearing you say have a relationship with to some extent. So how are you feeling like as you're interacting with this character that's supposed to be Jesus? Um how was that like personally that experience for you aside from the acting role, obviously the challenge of trying to capture the right emotion, the right words, the right, atmosphere. But for you personally, what was it doing?
And it was unlike anything I have ever done. I feel like as an actor, we love these moments where there is a rush. There's such a rush to playing certain roles. There's a rush to, that's what I love about being on stage. There's this rush that's unlike anything else when, it's opening night and you're doing the show for the first
Yeah.
time for a full audience. There was such a rush. That's the only thing I can say about that experience, is that it just felt like I could feel vibration from head to toe, in my body. And I mean, it could have also just been, yeah, adrenaline. It could have been the fact that that was my first time doing a scene of that size. It was like an 8-minute scene, on camera. I'd never just done sort of shorter bits and moments on TV and or in film. And so there was certainly a rush. But now looking back, I mean, I do think it had a lot to do with the fact that I am, a believer, and could envision or imagine what that would be like to be face to face with Jesus, and to hear him say, all that matters is your faith, and is what he says, spirit and truth. That's all that matters. And to hear her just be awakened to this, for the first time, riveting for me. I remember driving home and again, just feeling like a vibration head to toe. And I just couldn't shake it. And then I got home and told my husband. He's like, "How'd it go?" And I just like, "Wow, it was amazing." And the actor that played Jesus was so great. And he was just so giving. And it just felt so, I mean, there was just such a connection. I can't describe it. I mean, I feel, it was just letting it all out. And then my husband was just like, "Great. So, what are we making for dinner?" It's just like, moving on. What do we, I attribute it to like that feeling when you find out you're pregnant. You're so excited. Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. This is amazing. And then it's like, And now life continues. Like, okay, now we got to wait 9 months, you know? And
Yeah.
so that was kind of how I felt with that. And now looking back, I feel like it was God. I mean, he had a hand in it all, and the whole casting experience for me, I think he had a hand in it all. The experience from the moment I stepped on set, the moment I met Jonathan, I mean, he was just so giving. His eyes, his there's such a grace in him and such an ease, such a warm, inviting personality, and so that was wonderful. And we got to connect during lunch. We like did the scene, we rehearsed it a couple times. We did one take, and then we had to break for lunch. And I remember being like, "Oh, this is great. Now I got to wait another hour and a half." But we had lunch together. He didn't go into his trailer and do his own thing. He sat with me and we chatted. And so it gave us an opportunity to connect. And so then, yeah, just being in that onset and in that scene was just, it was unlike anything. Now looking back, I think it had a lot to do with just, I think, God's work in his hand in it all. And my my faith as an actor, feeling like he brought me to that point, and that, all that was left was to just leave it in his hands. I had done all the homework, I had prepared as best as I could, but then once it came down to it, it was just leaving it in his hands and just hoping that it all would come into play, and it would all end up working out. And I was just so surprised and so I felt when I got to see that scene. It came out later on that November, watching it and just thinking, wow, okay, that ended up working out, and then we'll see how it's received. And I never envisioned it was going to be it was going to take off the way The Chosen has. That was just, I never could have thought that was possible. But I do feel so blessed and humbled and grateful that I was able to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of the most, I mean, at least, and I could be wrong because, there's so many scenes at this point, but it's the scene that I know is talked about a lot and has touched people a lot. Um, and specifically your character, people relating a lot to the brokenness of the character and getting to interact with Christ in the fact that he can interact with our brokenness and he isn't afraid of it, but offers healing. Um, I was gonna ask too, for you, what do you think is something in your life personally that you really feel like the Lord has um brought healing to? I know you mentioned, maybe you haven't had like a traumatic past or this really traumatic event that sticks out, but every person, has their flaws or their struggles that, they live life with. And so for you, what is something that you feel like the Lord has been working on or has bring healing to your life as you've kind of grown, developed, as a mom, as an actress, as a wife? There you play many roles in life right now.
Yeah, motherhood. He has brought me, I mean, motherhood has been so incredibly challenging. I never thought it would be as challenging as it has been. Um, and yeah, there came a point, I think it was at the height of COVID for us. I had a little baby, he was probably 3 or 4 months at that point. And so we were just, actually, it wasn't the height. We were coming down, but I do remember we were all home with COVID. And my husband, I don't know, he was home, but I had a moment where I remember just, it was like a bomb had gone off. Like, I had never been so angry and frustrated, and just, I mean, it was a moment where I remember going into my room after I had the outburst. Something happened with one of my boys. He almost hurt the baby. And I just unleashed. And I went into my room and I just cried. And I remember getting down on my knees and praying and just saying, Lord, you have to help me. I cannot continue this way. And I felt like it was something that had been happening over a couple months, where I would just have outbursts, and, and then it would take me a good, hour to finally come back down. And so I didn't like the person I was becoming. I felt like I was scarring my children. I felt like I was angry more often. I was not more often than being happy. I was frustrated, and it was a combination of probably so many things that were happening in my life at that moment. Where I was feeling work was scarce because of COVID. We were home with COVID. I had a newborn. I mean, there was now
Yeah.
looking back, it's like there was so much going on. I had to give myself grace, but I do remember praying to God and saying, like, you have to help me get through this. And I think the very next day, I started looking for help, looking for therapy, looking for someone to speak to. Um, And that helped immensely. I found a Bible study, and that helped immensely because it's a mom's Bible study. And so there I didn't feel so alone. I didn't feel like I was the only, mom who was dealing with anger and resentment and, frustration. And just, I felt like I was just having just anger outbursts it was so unlike me, prior to having children.
Hmm.
And now I have found a way to navigate. I'm finding that, things about me, things that can set me off, and things that I have to avoid as a mom. I've learned that there are ways to parent that does not involve yelling. I read a book called Grace Based Discipline, and it was wonderful. That was a great Bible study that I was a part of that helped me find, yeah, I mean, leading with love and grace. And it can be so challenging. And so it's the opposite of what you want to do. You want to just
Yeah.
yell and,
Yeah, you
but
do.
it's like, finding that. And so I often say it was through that Bible study that I'll say, Lord, soften my heart, soften my heart. And my boys, I think they like hear me say that often, soften my heart, Lord, soften my heart, but that is, parenting has been, I laugh about it, but I mean, it is so challenging that my
Hmm.
children have seen sides to me that no one has seen. No one. I don't even think my husband, I mean, maybe that day he heard my outburst, but like he's never, there are things that my children have seen, I think, because they're so close to me. They were a part of my body, and now they're out frolicking in this world, and they see sides to me. They can look at me, and I'll cry just based off a look that they give me, and there's no one else
Yeah.
I know, maybe my husband, who can access that sort of emotion from me. But
Hmm.
at the same time, I feel like they see the best and worst parts of me as a mom.
Hmm.
And so I'm working it as a work in progress of just finding, leading with love and grace. And there did come a point where I reached out to God, and it was like, I need your help here. I can't continue this way. It was like, from that day on, I feel like I've gotten so much better. And I pray that I'll never get to that point again where I just felt so down on myself as a mom.
I feel like, and again, I haven't experienced it yet, so my my words may not mean that much, but from the moms that I've seen and the work they do, I mean, it seems like it's a very powerful role, almost like the biggest acting role you could get, because it's so long and intense, and you have so many people watching you, and them watching you is how they will learn how to interact with the world.
Yes.
Um,
No
and
pressure. No
so it's
pressure
like,
there.
yeah, exactly. It's huge. Um, well, how do you
Yeah.
rest? Do you
Yeah.
enjoy, like, what is you're working, you're a wife, you're a mom, what are things is there something you love to do that just gives you rest? Like you actually feel like you're resting, not just physically resting, but even mentally, like you're not racing, thinking about what you've got to do. Um, what do you find is a really restful place or thing when you think about it that you like to do?
I feel for me, even on days like today, these are the days that Tuesdays and Thursdays, the days my youngest goes off to preschool. So I have most of the day to myself. And you would think it would be like, I just want to lay on the couch and watch Netflix, or, of course, that is not what I'm doing. There's so many errands that I need to run, and things I need to do. But I think I do look forward to most at the end of each day is once the boys are asleep, and it's my time to just like pop my earbuds in and listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook. Like I'm
Hmm.
constantly wanting to either, I'm a part of a book club, so I listen to audiobooks. I don't read anymore just because I don't have time, or if I do sit down, I'll fall asleep within 5 minutes. So it's while I'm multitasking, folding laundry or doing dishes, and so I'm still doing things, which really isn't super restful, but it makes me feel it's my time. It's my time to just escape and listen to this lovely, world that this audiobook narrator has created, or to listen to a podcast that oftentimes is about parenting and
Yeah.
ways that I can better myself. So those are my times that I I feel like there are rewards for the day. Got through the day. Now I'm just gonna pop these, have no one bother me. No one's pulling on my leg and asking for milk and asking for a snack. And my husband's not. I mean, it is my time, and it's probably a good half hour a day. It's not even that long, but I just love to have that time where I can. For me, it's like decompressing.
Don't you do audiobooks yourself? Haven't you done some with your voice
Yeah,
audiobooks?
Yeah, I do some. So at one point I was doing them quite a bit right before COVID, and I had set up a studio space at my home. And then the company that I was working with switched over to just podcasts. They weren't doing audiobooks anymore. So that sort of put a stop on that. But occasionally I do have authors who will reach out to me and ask, from previous work that I've done, if I could narrate something or audition for something that they've written. So that's what's happened recently. It's either authors I've worked with before who are coming out with new books and want me to narrate again, or yeah, authors who just have found my work through Audible or through ACX is another. It's like Audible Community Exchange, I think is what it's called. They've seen my work there, and so they'll reach out. So I do love it. I love narrating. It's so fun to just that's an escape too, to just go into my little studio space and read a book aloud and just bring my imagination to these characters and tell
Mm.
these stories in a way that just makes it feel like you're there, you're listening in on this conversation. And so I appreciate great narrators as well. When I hear an awesome audible narrator, I'm looking them up and trying to find out what other I'll listen to other books because I love the narrators so much. So
Do you have a favorite
I do.
one?
What is her name? I'll have to look her up. She did, what was that book? There was a book called The Huntress, and I loved. Let me see if I can find her. I think I wrote her name down. The Huntress is the book, and if you can listen to the audiobook, my goodness, it was so good. Oh, The Huntress, yes. Her name, oh, did I write it here? I'll have to get back to you. Let me see. Oh, great. Yeah, I put the narrator who did The Huntress, but not Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Oh, there's another book that she's narrating right now, or that she did, called The Caretakers, and that
Okay.
one also looks amazing. So let me see if I can find her because I do it. She is amazing. I mean, she can do so many accents. The Caretakers, yeah. She does so many accents and dialects, and it's just incredible.
Wow.
Eliza Maxwell. Eliza Maxwell.
I have not heard of her. I've
Yeah,
got to look it
she's
up.
awesome.
Okay.
And The Huntress, I've got to listen to The Caretakers, but The Huntress was oh so good. Yeah, and that's her name. Yeah. Oh no, don't quote me. Sorry, Eliza was that other one, but this is the one. Okay. Her name is Saskia Marlveld. Oh, it's Saskia's Saskia, Saskia Marlveld. It's Marleveld. I'm just butchering her last name,
Well,
but yeah,
it
she's
sounds
done.
like Icelandic or something.
I
Okay.
know. Oh yeah, and she's awesome. That's the one narrated by yeah. Depp. So sorry, maybe that wasn't The Caretakers. Maybe it's someone else. Oops.
No, I
But I
gotta
mean,
look that
she's worth
up
listening to. Yeah.
because I love a good narrator, and it's been, to be honest, I think it's been a while. Like I love the English ones, like especially, oh, what's his name? David Suchet is really good. Um
Look him up. I'll have to write these down because yeah, I'm so into yeah, listening to just me too. British narrators.
yes,
Yes,
you're like,
that's
ah.
something about. And I love it when they switch over to English, when they have, English, American, characters, when they switch over to American English. I'm like, oh, they just do it so seamlessly and they sound so, it's like,
You know,
wow.
come to think of
Yep.
it, Andy Serkis is also really good, and he has
Okay.
narrated
I'll
some
have to look.
stuff. You
Andy
know
said,
the
yeah.
guy who's in Lord of the Rings, Gollum? His voice, not when he's doing Gollum, is very good.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll have to
But
listen. Yeah. These are all people I'm writing
Vanessa,
down.
I'm gonna ask you one more question. Just be
Yeah.
respectful of the time. Um, if you had to pick a melody, it can be a song that has lyrics or it can just be instrumental that you think describes who you are and it plays, what would you pick?
Oh my goodness. A melody or a song that describes, um, I love, there's a worship song. It's super famous, but the Spirit lead me where my trust is
Yep,
without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you will call me. Yeah. Oceans, right? Is it Oceans?
I
What's that one
think so,
called?
yes.
Oceans, yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. That was a song that I kept singing when I was pregnant with, I think, my second.
Hmm.
Um, because you can easily just become so just consumed by all the anxieties involved with life, and with in that case it was pregnancy, and is this pregnancy going to go well? And, I just, there was always so much anxiety around me at that time. So, yeah, Oceans, that song got me through a lot of it. And I remember thinking and humming that song to myself often. And I think I was humming it during labor too with my second. Um, yeah, it's a good
Wow,
song.
that's so neat. You should maybe sing it to your kids.
Yes, I should. I should. And I think I loved the ocean imagery because I remember one of my doulas said that you can think of the contractions when you're in labor as an ocean, that kind of the wave
It is,
comes
yeah.
over and then it passes. And so that was another reason why I loved singing that song.
That
Yeah.
is so cool. I bet you they heard it in the womb too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they did.
Well, Vanessa, thank you so much. And again, for listeners, Vanessa DeSilvio, talking to her, the actress who played in The Chosen as the woman at the well. Um, but she's also done, as she said, she's done some audiobooks, she's done commercials, she's done some TV shows, and she's hoping to get into, hopefully, we'll see you in a role where we can watch episodically and you'll be in it. But Vanessa, thank you so
That's the
much for your
hope.
time. It's been a gift to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and I've really enjoyed this interview. So thanks.
You're so welcome.